In a small, sun-soaked town in the Philippines, 17-year-old Jayden Cruz stood barefoot on the corner of a busy marketplace. The air smelled of fried fish and roasted corn as vendors called out their prices, trying to draw in customers. But above the chatter and clatter of daily life, a smooth, high voice began to rise. It was Jayden, holding a cracked microphone attached to an old speaker. His sound wasn't perfect, but his passion made people stop in their tracks. He sang Michael Jackson's Billie Jean with such power and accuracy that the crowd started clapping along. His moonwalk across the rough pavement wasn't flawless, yet his energy was electric. Children giggled, old men nodded their heads, and even tired workers paused to listen. Every note he sang carried years of hope and hardship, every move reflected a dream he refused to give up. Behind him, his mother, Aling Rosa, watched proudly while tending to her small food stall. She had spent her life trying to provide for Jayden, selling rice meals and noodles from dawn to dusk. Whenever she saw her son performing, her eyes softened with love and a hint of sadness. She knew his talent was greater than the street corner he stood on, but dreams like that cost money, money they didn't have. Yet Jayden never complained. He would say, "One day, Mama, the world will hear me sing." One afternoon, as Jayden performed, Heal the World, a foreign tourist stopped by and filmed him with a phone. The man smiled, amazed by the boy's talent. "You sound just like Michael Jackson," he told him before leaving. Jayden didn't think much of it. But a few days later, something unexpected happened. Strangers started approaching him, showing him the video on their phones. It had been uploaded online and was spreading fast. Views climbed into the millions. People around the world were commenting, calling him the Filipino Michael Jackson. Then came an email that changed everything. A representative from Britain's Got Talent reached out, inviting him to audition. Jayden couldn't believe it. He showed the message to his mother, who cried tears of joy and fear. "London is so far away," she whispered, holding his hands tightly. But Jayden looked at her with determination in his eyes. "Mama, this is my chance. I have to go." For days, the whole neighborhood buzzed with excitement. Local businesses helped raise money for his flight, and a local radio station interviewed him as the boy who made Simon Cowell watch. The night before he left, Jayden stood on his rooftop, looking up at the stars. "This is for you, Papa," he murmured softly. "I'll make our name known." When the day of his flight arrived, hundreds gathered at the airport to see him off. His mother hugged him tightly, slipping a small rosary into his pocket. "For luck, Anik," she said, her voice breaking. Jayden smiled, wiped his eyes, and whispered, "I'll come back stronger, Mama." As the plane lifted off, his heart pounded with excitement and fear. He had never traveled before, never even left his island. But now, he was heading to London, the city of dreams, where his voice might change his life forever. The long flight felt like a dream. Jayden looked out the window as clouds drifted below him, humming songs quietly under his breath. He practiced his breathing, his hand movements, his spins, trying to perfect every detail. When the plane landed, the cold London air hit his face like a shock. Everything was huge, bright, and new. He saw people rushing by in coats and scarves, cars moving fast, and tall buildings that seemed to touch the sky. It was overwhelming but thrilling. At the hotel provided by the show, Jayden met contestants from all over the world. Some had stylists, expensive clothes, and vocal coaches. Jayden only had his old shoes, a thrifted jacket, and his mother's rosary. For a moment, doubt crept in, maybe he didn't belong here. But then he remembered the faces of those who had cheered for him back home, the sound of his mother's voice saying she believed in him. He took a deep breath, tightened his grip on his rosary, and whispered to himself, "You were born for this, Jayden." That night, as he looked out at the lights of London through his window, he smiled faintly. Tomorrow, he would step on a stage that millions dreamed of. And even though he came from the smallest corner of the world, his voice was ready to echo across it. The next morning, Jayden woke up before dawn, his heart pounding with nerves. Today was the day, his audition for Britain's Got Talent. He sat quietly by the window, holding his rosary, whispering a small prayer. The hotel room felt cold, and his hands were trembling. He practiced a few warm-up notes softly, just enough to steady his voice. Downstairs, a car waited to take him to the studio. As they drove through the gray London streets, Jayden stared out the window in silence, watching strangers rush to work, buses speeding by, and the sky heavy with clouds. Everything around him was unfamiliar, but inside, he carried a world of hope and music. When they arrived at the studio, the energy backstage was buzzing. Contestants were stretching, rehearsing, and fixing their costumes. Jayden stood quietly in the corner, holding his small bag with his outfit and old headphones. A friendly stage manager noticed his nervousness and said, "You'll be great, kid. Just sing your heart out." Jayden smiled weakly. He had never seen a place so big or bright, cameras everywhere, judges' names printed on chairs, the famous golden buzzer shining under spotlights. He could hardly believe he was here. When it was finally his turn, the crew guided him toward the stage entrance. His heart raced faster with every step. He could hear the loud murmur of the audience beyond the curtains. Then, suddenly, he was out there, on the massive stage, lights glaring in his eyes. Thousands of faces stared back at him. The judges, Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, Alicia Dixon, and Bruno Tonioli, looked curious. Simon leaned forward, studying the shy young boy standing before them. "Hello," Simon said. "What's your name, and where are you from?" Jayden swallowed hard and replied, "My name is Jayden Cruz, and I'm from the Philippines." His accent was gentle, his voice trembling but sincere. "What are you going to do for us today?" Simon asked. "I will sing a Michael Jackson song," Jayden said, trying to smile. The music began, the opening chords of Earth's Song. For a moment, silence filled the air. Jayden closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then he began to sing. His voice was soft at first, but as the lyrics flowed, something powerful awakened inside him. His tone carried pain, emotion, and purity that made the audience quiet down. Every note rose higher, stronger, fuller. The judges exchanged glances, even Simon's usual cold stare softened. Jayden opened his eyes and started moving with the rhythm, performing MJ's signature gestures and turns. When he hit the high notes, people in the crowd gasped. By the second verse, the entire audience was clapping along. As he danced across the stage, his confidence grew. He didn't see the cameras anymore or the bright lights, he saw his mother's smiling face back home, her eyes filled with pride. When the song reached its climax, he dropped to his knees, singing with everything he had left in him. The theater erupted. The crowd stood on their feet, cheering and clapping wildly. Amanda Holden covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. Alicia Dixon whispered, "He's incredible." Bruno shouted, "That was magic." And then, Simon Cowell, the man known for his cold critiques, stood up slowly. He looked at Jayden for a long moment, then reached out his hand and slammed the golden buzzer. The audience exploded in cheers as golden confetti rained down from the ceiling. Jayden froze, unable to process what had just happened. Tears rolled down his face as he looked up at the golden lights falling around him. The host ran on stage, hugging him tightly. Simon walked up, shook his hand, and said, "That was one of the most powerful performances I've seen in years. You reminded the world why we love music." Backstage, Jayden called his mother on video. When she appeared on screen, she was crying uncontrollably. "Mama, I did it!" he shouted, his voice breaking. "You did it, Anik. You made us proud," she said, holding the phone close to her heart. That moment was captured on live TV and replayed millions of times online. Within hours, Jayden's performance went viral again, even bigger than before. Celebrities shared his clip, fans called him the Filipino MJ, and news outlets around the world wrote about the boy who brought Simon Cowell to his feet. That night, as Jayden sat quietly in his hotel room, the golden buzzer moment replayed in his mind. He still couldn't believe it. He opened his phone, scrolling through thousands of messages from strangers saying he had inspired them. He smiled softly and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." Then, looking out the window at the shining London skyline, he made a promise to himself, this was only the beginning. Weeks passed, and Jayden's life changed completely. The boy who once sang barefoot in the streets of Manila was now known across the world. Every news channel wanted to interview him, every fan wanted a selfie, and every child in his hometown wanted to sing just like him. But behind all the fame, Jayden remained humble. He still called his mother every night before bed, telling her about rehearsals, new songs, and how much he missed her home-cooked food. "I'll come home soon, Mama," he would say softly. She always replied, "Keep going, Anik." The world is watching. The semifinals were approaching fast, and the pressure was unlike anything Jayden had ever felt. He was up against incredible acts, acrobats, choirs, magicians, but the producers told him he was one of the favorites to win. Simon Cowell personally checked on him, asking how he felt. "I'm nervous," Jayden admitted. Simon smiled and said, "Good. Nerves mean you care. But remember, don't try to be Michael Jackson. Be Jayden Cruz." Those words stayed in his mind as he practiced late into the night, sometimes until his voice cracked. For the semifinal round, Jayden decided to sing "Man in the Mirror." It wasn't just another song, it was a story about his life, about wanting to change things, about giving hope. He dedicated it to his late father, who had passed away when he was just 10. During rehearsal, Jayden broke down crying in the middle of the song, his voice shaking. The vocal coach told him to take a break, but he refused. "I need to feel this," he said. He wasn't just performing anymore, he was sharing his heart. The night of the semifinals arrived. The theater was packed, the air filled with excitement and tension. As Jayden walked onto the stage, the crowd cheered wildly. He took a deep breath, holding his father's memory close. When the first notes began, the audience went silent. His voice was softer this time, more emotional, like he was singing directly to someone he lost. The lyrics hit deep: "If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change." His words echoed through the theater. Some audience members were in tears. Even Simon's usual poker face cracked, his eyes glistening. When Jayden finished, there was a moment of complete silence, then the crowd exploded into cheers and applause. The judges stood up one by one, giving him a standing ovation. Amanda Holden said, "Jayden, you didn't just sing, you made us feel something beautiful." Alicia added, "That was real, raw, and unforgettable." Simon leaned forward and said, "You're not just a singer, Jayden. You're an artist." Jayden smiled shyly and bowed, tears shining in his eyes. He advanced to the grand finale with the highest public votes of the night. When the day of the finale arrived, Jayden knew it was the biggest moment of his life. He stood backstage wearing a white suit inspired by Michael Jackson's "Smooth Criminal" look. The lights were brighter, the crowd louder, and the pressure heavier than ever. He whispered a prayer, kissed his rosary, and stepped onto the stage. The audience cheered his name, Jayden. Jayden, as the lights dimmed and the music began. He started with "Smooth Criminal," gliding across the stage with perfect rhythm, every move sharp and controlled. Then he transitioned into "Beat It," showing his energy and charisma. Finally, he ended with "Heal the World," his voice soaring high above the music. It was a mix of power and peace, blending Michael's style with his own emotion. The stage lit up with gold and blue lights, fireworks sparkled behind him, and the entire arena was on its feet before the last note even ended. When the results were announced, Jayden placed first runner-up. For a second, he felt a sting of disappointment, but Simon Cowell walked up to him and said, "You didn't lose, Jayden. You just began." The audience cheered, chanting his name again. Reporters called it one of the most unforgettable performances in Britain's Got Talent history. A week later, Jayden returned home to the Philippines. Thousands greeted him at the airport with banners, music, and tears. His mother hugged him so tightly that he could barely breathe. "You made us proud," she whispered. Instead of chasing fame, Jayden used his prize money to open a small music school for poor children in his hometown. Every afternoon, he would teach kids to sing and dance, telling them, "Dreams don't start on big stages, they start right here." And as the sun set over the same streets where he once sang barefoot, Jayden smiled, knowing he had kept his promise to make his country proud and heal the world through music.